Hello?
Global Tel Link. This call may be recorded. I have a prepaid call from an inmate at Hudson County Correctional Center. Your account balance is $40.50. If you wish to accept this prepaid call, dial 0 and hold. To refuse, dial 5.
Now you're gonna make me cry. Keith is a lot of things. To some, he is an actor. He is a member of the Screen Actors Guild, actually. He's also a mentor. He's been a youth mentor, teaching young kids how to use computers and whatnot. He's an IT professional working at a major bank on Wall Street. Keith is also an activist. And when you really look into who Keith is, who is this guy? On the surface, yeah, he's that funny, haha, joking guy, but he's also very serious about people's civil rights. I'm sad and I miss my friend. And
would you mind telling us what happened on that night, from your recollection, from what you've heard happen? Can you tell us what led to Keith's arrest?
This is what I can tell you about what happened that evening. Keith and I were texting each other. I noticed around 10:15 that the text stopped coming. But Saturday comes and Keith doesn't show up. He's not at rehearsal. He hasn't called anyone. No one's heard from him. And this is for the entire day. And given what I know about Keith and his character, this was very much outside of his normal patterns of behavior. So I thought to myself, which police department has he pissed off recently? Jersey. Because of a video he posted on his website, or his Facebook, of an interaction he had with the Jersey police threatening to arrest him because he was videotaping them at the MTA. So that was my first instinct, was to call the New Jersey Police Department, where they confirmed that they had him in custody. Eventually I would find out from Keith and then the landlord that on Thursday evening, as Keith was in his room, in bed, texting me, and I was aware, based on our conversation before, that the heat had been going out in this week, which was the coldest winter week here on the East Coast. The next thing that happened, according to the landlord, was in his argument with the upstairs neighbor. He told the upstairs neighbor the heating was going to be fixed Saturday. The police arrived, the landlord was at home, and he heard him knocking on the door upstairs. Then the police came and knocked on the landlord's door and started yelling at him about, why are you leaving this man in the cold, and don't you know he's sick? And the landlord said the police were very intimidated to him and spoke to him as if he was their employee and demanded that he fix the heat right away. Even though the landlord explained that the heat was going to be fixed in the next 2 days and that there was nothing he could do about it, the police, under the pretense of coming in to check a heating problem, barged into Keith's apartment without a warrant, without proper cause, and surprised him inside of his apartment. This corresponds with the thump that Keith told me he heard while he was in his bedroom, because he didn't understand what was going on. So Keith, not knowing that there were people in his apartment, but hearing something outside of his bedroom door, sensing that something is wrong, maybe someone is inside of his apartment, in this glorious neighborhood of Jersey City, where it is just safe, puts his hand on a notebook pouch, a zip-up pouch that has his legally owned handgun inside of it. So when he opened the door, at first he saw the police outside the door, he saw the landlord, and he saw someone standing in his living room. So he put it down, and that's when the officer turned around and said, "What's that in your hand? What did you just pull? What did you just put down?" The landlord says that the officers immediately pulled guns out on Keith, when they thought that he might have a weapon, and barged into his room, searched the room, found his handgun, and arrested him. The guns were not in plain sight. As a matter of fact, the one handgun that Keith had was never taken out. It was in a zip-up notebook pouch, which looks like a day planner, zipped up inside of a day planner. This is what Keith threw down, that the cops questioned him about. So in order for them to know what was inside that day planner, they had to illegally search, open it up, find a weapon, and then search the apartment after handcuffing him and find other weapons that were not in plain view. Keith was charged with illegal possession of a handgun, illegal possession of a quote-unquote assault rifle, felony possession of quote-unquote assault rifle, and illegal possession of bullets, and transporting bullets. Transporting from where to where when you're at home, I don't know. I was aware of the fact that he had guns, because he talked to me about it, and he talked to me about gun safety and his licenses. He showed me his licenses for several states. He told me how his guns were legal. He told me about the school that he went to for gun safety and all of these things. And I believe Keith was in the process of getting permits for this state, because he talked about the lengthy process of doing so, the paperwork and how difficult it was. And the police didn't care about that. They said, you don't have permits for this state. And they snatched him out of his apartment and arrested him. As a result, to this moment, Keith has lost his Wall Street job. Again, he was working on Wall Street as an IT professional for a very large and high-end bank. He no longer has that position. Keith has lost his apartment. Yes, this beautiful dwelling that you see behind me in this glorious neighborhood. He's, and to a certain extent, between the article maligning his character, comparing him to terrorists, you know, his name has been, or they've attempted to tarnish his name. They've attempted to basically, in every way possible, ruin otherwise law-abiding citizen. I don't say anything more. It just, you know, it's amazing to me how, with all of the criminal ownership of weapons, particularly in this area, the one person is doing everything that he can to make sure that he legally owns his weapons and have the legal and licensed right to have them in his home, who does everything he can to educate himself and the public about their constitutional rights, their Second Amendment rights, their Fourth Amendment rights to bear arms, protect themselves, and do everything by the book. This is the one, this is the guy that they arrest? I'm sorry, there's something really wrong. Keith's bail amount is set right now at $75,000. His legal fees for his attorney is around $20,000. What I'm trying to do is raise awareness, and not only raise awareness to get the story out about this egregious miscarriage of justice and the trampling of a man's, not even just the Second Amendment rights, his Fourth Amendment rights, but also raise money to help cover his legal fees. And beyond that, if enough money can be raised for his legal fees, enough money can be raised to help other people who are in this situation as well. Because he's not the only one who has experienced this or is going to experience this.
They cited a law, and I don't know if it's a law or a loophole in the law, but what they said was basically they did not owe me or anyone else on that train a duty to protect.
And now I've been convicted of 2 5-year felonies, consecutive 5-year felonies, for taking data from a public web server and giving it to a journalist.
This is available for everybody, not just yourself.
That's correct. It was on the